First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
After a strenuous weekend following Hurricane Helene, communities are still recovering. This is WUFT's First at 5. I'm Natasha Holt.
And I'm Alex Land. Thank you for joining us. Nonprofit organizations, county, state, and even federal leaders are answering the call to assist those feeling the direct effects of Hurricane Helene. Mercy Chefs are offering hot meals in Newberry for those affected by Helene. Meals are being distributed from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., then again from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And Levy County is also offering hot meals in Cedar Key at First Baptist Church until further notice.
School's back on tomorrow for some North Central Florida students. Dixie and Columbia County school districts have announced students can return tomorrow, despite some still not having power at home. Columbia County schools are allowing an excused absence tomorrow without a note. Transportation will run in all areas where the roads are accessible.
Hurricane Helene and its 15 feet of storm surge wiped out most of Cedar Key. WUFT's Charlize Ramos says neighbor after neighbor promises to rebuild.
We're gonna get started. We're not gonna wait a month or two. We're gonna try to move right in.
You'll hear the same vow street after street. Stony Smith's liquor store has been open for 60 years, making it the oldest running business on Cedar Key. Smith and his employees are wasting no time cleaning up, with the hope they can open sooner rather than later. Next door along 2nd Street, Benjamin Iverson wants to make sure his business isn't gone if another storm hits.
Probably take our time cleaning up just in case it decides it wants to come our way again.
Iverson says witnessing the damage makes him feel helpless.
Seeing it in person is kind of just breathtaking. You know, what Mother Nature can do and the damage is just, it's incredible.
Neighbors agree the damage from Hurricane Helene is far worse than anything they have seen before.
You know, I came back from Idalia. I saw a lot of this, but nowhere near the power or, you know, just the destruction. So this felt worse, a lot worse.
Even with damage to their properties, the community continues to lift each other up.
Where everybody knows everyone waves, and I mean, everybody actually does care about everyone.
Even in tough times, both Weibel and Iverson say they wouldn't want to be anywhere else. In Cedar Key, Charlize Ramos, WUFT News.
Despite the devastation, the resilient community of Cedar Key continues rebuilding and supporting each other storm after storm.
Heavy rains today delayed cleanup and power restoration from Hurricane Helene, and more rain is on the way. Let's get right out to UF meteorologist William Maxham live in the weather studio. William, we'll likely see rain for much of the week.
Yeah, every day this week we at least have some chance of rain, and right now we're seeing some heavier rain showers moving across I-75 right around Oaks Mall. We had some heavier rain in the past 15 minutes or so. Now that shower a little north of Gainesville and some sprinkles still across the UF campuses. Another shower moves through just to the south. That one going to be making for some rain around Paynes Prairie into the next 20 to 30 minutes, but you can see further out to the east things are drying out. Showers and storms going to hang on a bit longer in the eastern part of the state into the early evening. Temperatures into the 80s now, and we're looking at a slow cool down into the evening, into the 70s by the early morning, but more showers are on our way tomorrow. More on that and the tropics coming up.
The Florida Urban Search and Rescue Task Force 8 returned home to Marion County today. The 28-member team was deployed to Steinhatchee, Keaton Beach, and Deckle Beach to help with recovering efforts after Hurricane Helene. Task Force 8 is made up of technical rescue specialists from Gainesville, Ocala, and Marion County Fire Rescue Departments.
Horseshoe Beach is rebuilding after being torn apart by Hurricane Helene, leaving people with nothing but prayers. I spoke to a lifelong resident who lost everything. At 64 years old, shrimp fisherman Timmy Fudge has seen many storms come through Horseshoe Beach. The damage from Hurricane Helene was like nothing he's seen before.
Never seen one this bad. I mean, never had water in my yard, never had even had water in my house, and it's got in my house this time. It was a bad storm, a real bad storm.
Timmy and his family have lived in Horseshoe Beach his entire life in this specific house since 1989, and now he doesn't know what his next steps are. To make matters worse, Timmy's just getting back on his feet after Category 3 Hurricane Idalia tore through his beach community last year. He says the damage he sees yet again makes it hard to not lose hope.
It's hard to hold back tears. It's kind of, you kind of figure, is it worth it? I've always said I was hard-headed, and whatever it comes, I could do it. This is bad.
Horseshoe Beach Mayor Jeff Williams admires the community's perseverance during these tough times.
Well, that's typical for Horseshoe. I mean, we've been through 3 hurricanes now in 13 months. You will see family and friends come in from all over to help their friends and family in Horseshoe. It's heartwarming.
Heartwarming to see a community picking up the pieces once more. Timmy Fudge says he plans to rebuild and continue to live his life in his long life home.
UF saw impacts on campus as well. The historic oak tree outside of Norman Hall was struck down during the storm. WUFT's Christy Blott is live in the studio with the legacy oak that's no longer standing.
The large oak tree that stood tall for almost 10 decades in front of Norman Hall Library was a victim to the catastrophic Category 4 Hurricane Helene. The tree was originally 3 separate trees that over the years came together into one. Currently, the tree is blocked off with caution tape. Students are unable to get into the library through that entrance. Those who wish to enter must go around. The tree was memorable to many students and staff who would pass by the courtyard.
It is very sad to see our live oaks go. Live oaks are one of the best parts of living in the South, and I hope when this goes that we can plant something or do something else in this courtyard.
The university is still assessing the damages, but the cleanup is predicted to require cranes due to the size of the tree. With all of the debris, officials advise everyone to be careful when navigating the roads and report any large damages. Live in the studio, Christy Blott, WUFT News.
North Central Florida residents are cleaning up after Hurricane Helene leaves a path of damage through the region. WUFT reporter Emilio Boutros shows us how Gainesville residents are contending with.
There was definitely a lot of damage done by this storm.
Buck, Oregon is referring to scenes like this one. Massive trees down, some on fences and other structures. This more than 100-year-old oak tree split in 3 near University of Florida's Norman Hall.
There's a lot of debris on the road. Trees have come down on houses, blocking roads, things of that nature, and a good amount of trees that came down and blocked the neighborhood. The city is actually doing a really good job of jumping on that right now. It definitely, I think, came through a lot lower than originally, like what everyone was thinking.
Oregon is the owner of Gainesville Landscaping, one of several tree and debris removal businesses scrambling to meet the demands of an ever-growing clientele list. Still, other residents are taking matters into their own hands.
Just trying to, make everything look normal again, picking up all the limbs and stuff like that. We did have a tree fall and, our fence come down with it. So that's probably our next step.
Branch by branch, neighbor helping neighbor, even as a community rallies together, this cleanup will take time.
I mean, there is a lot of debris. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes several weeks in order to see a complete change of going back to normal.
Until then, it is clear that Hurricane Helene left its mark on this north central Florida city. In Gainesville, Emilio Boutros, WFT News.
Helene is also impacting mailing services. USPS has new operational updates for areas affected by Hurricane Helene. On the screen, you can see the locations that have been temporarily suspended due to the storm, along with the alternate location in Chiefland. After the break, how contractor scams are spreading following the hurricane.
And I'll tell you more about how local residents kept their animals safe during the storm. All that and more when First at 5 returns.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
When it became clear that Hurricane Helene would impact much of north central Florida, many equine owners in the state began searching for shelter for their horses.
I spoke with those who took refuge at the World Equestrian Center about why the facility's generosity quelled their fears about keeping their animals safe. Small pets like cats and dogs are commonly brought along with their owners searching for hurricane shelter. But it's not as easy to relocate a 1,000-pound animal. Horse owners often must go to great lengths to make sure the equine for which they care are safe in a storm. When the World Equestrian Center in Ocala announced it would welcome evacuees, horse owners quickly responded to fill more than 1,200 stalls that were offered. Maggie Nelson said having the opportunity to keep her 2 horses at the center gave her peace of mind during the storm.
I came because I was worried about the wind. We have an outdoor barn, and I didn't want any objects to fly into my horses, and I always know that they'll be safe at WEC because their barns are perfectly solid and I don't have to worry.
The equestrian facility and resort welcomes visitors from around the globe for competitions throughout the year. But when hurricane season presents danger for the equestrian community, the facility opens to those just hoping to stay safe.
It's really important to our ownership to be able to give back. Like I said, this is a community here, and it's an equestrian community in Ocala where that's really the heartbeat of what we do and why we're here. So in any way that we're able to give back to that community, we want to be able to do that.
Equestrians must plan for how things like strong winds, flooding, barn damage, and loss of access to water could affect their horses.
We have those concrete stalls and barns, so that's something that, you know, in a storm is a real advantage to have, and so we want to open those doors and welcome in those evacuees.
For many horse owners, they're more concerned about finding shelter for their equine partners than for themselves.
I wouldn't worry so much if it was just me, but because I have him and my other horse to worry about, you have to think of the animals first and do what's best for them. So you don't just hunker down in your house. You gotta evacuate and get them somewhere safe if you possibly can.
And for those who came, the opportunity was one for which they are grateful. The World Equestrian Center has welcomed evacuees in previous storms, and there's never a cost to those who use the facility for shelter.
We have continued coverage of Hurricane Helene recovery efforts on our website. You can find the latest information on school reopenings, how you can apply for disaster aid, how to look out for scammers, and where to get a hot meal and a warm shower. That's all on WUFT.org/Helene.
The Hurricane Center is tracking where we may see our next tropical system developing in the Gulf. I'll have the latest after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome back. Showers tracking from west to east, now moving across I-75 and intensifying a bit in eastern Alachua County, right around Waldo. Some lightning strikes in the past hour, but storms are winding down for the evening, and in the next few hours, we'll have some activity kind of limited to the coast, the Atlantic coast, and then we'll see a lull in that activity for the overnight hours, with storms picking up again tomorrow afternoon and pretty much every day this week, which is going to make cleanup much more difficult as that rain keeps on coming down and the heat and humidity stays high. Now this evening we'll have temperatures moving into the 70s later tonight, and we could see some early morning fog. It's very warm and sticky, and that humidity is going to remain high. 80 degrees currently at the University of Florida underneath a mostly cloudy sky. You can see some showers there. In the distance north of campus, it feels a little bit warmer than our actual temperatures, feeling like 86, but you can expect heat index values close to 100 degrees over the next couple days as temperatures move into the upper 80s to right around that 90-degree mark. Currently 84 Palatka, 89 in Ocala with a little bit of sunshine, and still dealing with power outages in much of the area. We have 8,500 people or customers without power in Alachua County. Further north, Columbia County, 10,000 customers. These numbers are going down, but they are still quite significant, and right on the eastern side of Helene's track, that's where we're seeing the most power outages, and it's going to take a long time for folks to finish the cleanup process there. Further south, not impressive now. In fact, very difficult to determine any kind of circulation there, but we're watching where we could see our next tropical system moving out of the Gulf. Temperature of the water not going to be a limiting factor. We're well into the 80s. It only takes 80-degree water for storms to intensify. Computer models showing all kinds of different solutions. This just one run of one computer model showing you what might happen in the next 7 days. We're looking at potentially a storm developing in the Gulf. You can see the winds moving around here, potentially a tropical storm by early next week, passing over the peninsula. And this, again, just one possible solution. Computer models kind of all over the place with how the tropics are going to behave into the next few days. I think we'll see another storm, but the impacts are very uncertain as we move ahead for the next few days. One thing that is certain is our forecast remains unsettled and very warm with showers and storms each day.
Coming up in sports, the Gators prepare to take on UCF this Saturday. And Oak Hall took on Eagles View in one of the few high school matchups that were not canceled or postponed this past weekend. All this and more after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
After taking a break last week, the Gators are getting back into action this weekend to take on in-state opponent UCF on Saturday night. The matchup marks the 9th straight sellout game at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium this season. WUFT's Madison Walker has more information on how the Gators are feeling about the game following a press conference earlier today.
After the bye week, Florida's football team is feeling ready to go this weekend to host the University of Central Florida in the Swamp. In today's press conference, head coach Billy Napier praised his team's performance in practice last week, saying the team, quote, got better in preparation for UCF this weekend.
I do think our football team got better. We had 3 really good practices, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I think the staff and the players did a great job competing. And I think they competed all 3 days were very competitive.
Recently transitioned into the Big 12 Conference, UCF will be yet another challenge for Florida this weekend. Starting the game fast and capturing the momentum will be key in keeping the Gators in the win column after their recent Mississippi State victory. The Knights and Gators will be under the bright lights of the Swamp Saturday night. Kickoff is at 7:30. Reporting live, Madison Walker, WUFT Sports.
Even though Hurricane Helene canceled many of the high school football games this past week, Oak Hall was able to take on Eagles View on Saturday night. WUFT's Ben McLeish was able to go to the game and brings you all the details.
Whether it's through rain, shine, or a hurricane, in the world of Florida high school football, you have to always be ready for the unexpected.
Oak Hall learned that firsthand when they took on Eagles View just 2 days after winds and rain from Hurricane Helene moved through Gainesville. The Eagles defeated the Warriors 41-12 Saturday, despite finding out they'd play that same morning. Oak Hall head coach Randy Brower was pleased with his team's performance on such short notice.
The prep is for always interesting when the Mother Nature strikes and tells us this is what we're going to do. So, but we got it in. We got it done, and it was a good win.
But the win wasn't the highlight of the night. Starting quarterback Dakota Brower played in his first game since injuring his collarbone in Week 1, throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. The senior QB was the spark Oak Hall was missing in its 2-3 start. Up next, the Eagles take on 2-3 Interlochen on Friday. With their starting quarterback recovered from injury and their record back up to 500, the Eagles will look to make a late-season push for their first ever state championship. Ben McLeish, WUFT Sports.
Yesterday, Gators volleyball fell to their highest-ranked opponent of the season, Kentucky, for their first SEC matchup of the season, breaking their 5-game winning streak and putting them at 10-3 on the season. Florida was able to grab a third set after trailing by 2, but were unable to take the fourth, losing Sunday's match 3-1. Sophomore Kennedy Martin finished with 25 kills, tying her own season high and continuing her streak of double-digit kills in every match of hers as a Gator. The Gators have the week to prepare to take on NCAA defending champions number 8 Texas on Sunday in the O'Connell Center. Lastly, in some somber news, Dikembe Mutombo, NBA center, legend, and ambassador, has passed away of brain cancer at the age of 58. The NBA announced today that he passed surrounded by his family.
What a loss. He was an NBA legend.
Yeah. Truly an iconic player. William, before we go, can we get one last check on the weather?
Let's do it. Our weather going to remain unsettled, and it's really not doing us any favors for folks trying to do some cleanup of that debris around the yards. We have showers in the forecast each afternoon, and temperatures in the upper 80s are going to feel close to 100 in the most intense heat of the day. We're watching a potential tropical system in the Gulf by the end of the week, but lots of details about that remain uncertain, so keep checking back here for the latest through the week.
Thanks for joining us. We're back here tomorrow for another edition of First at 5.
But your North Central Florida news is always on WUFT.org and all of our social media platforms. Have a good night.